The arena trembled with anticipation as the spotlight split the darkness, revealing the silhouettes of two men stepping into a battlefield that would soon echo with legacy. Daniel the Miracle Man Jacobs walked slowly, breathing deep, absorbing every sound of Madison Square Garden as if committing it to memory. A man who once fought cancer, now prepared to challenge the most feared puncher of the era. He moved with controlled composure, each stride reminding the world that survival had sharpened him, not softened him. Across the tunnel, Gennady Triple G Golovkin emerged, his face the same frozen mask of focus that had unnerved 33 opponents before. There was nothing theatrical in his demeanor. He carried the quiet certainty of a man whose power had become myth. When the two met at center ring, tension crackled like exposed wires. The referee's instructions barely registered over the pounding heartbeat of the arena. As the bell rang, Golovkin immediately pressed forward with that signature stalk, methodical, untouched by emotion, forcing Jacobs to circle, probe, and calculate. The crowd felt the shift in atmosphere instantly. Jacobs wasn't panicked. He wasn't intimidated. He jabbed, moved, reset, and refused to let Golovkin's presence bully him into chaos. But every time Golovkin stepped in, every time his gloves twitched, the audience braced for impact. The first round became a silent negotiation, a test of range, timing, and nerve. Golovkin's jab cracked like a hammer on steel. Jacobs' counter rhythm flickered with promise. What started as a hunt began to resemble a chess match, and the tension rose with every exchange. Even in these early minutes, one thing was clear. This would not be an ordinary Triple G demolition. This was a man ready to defy gravity. By the time the second and third rounds unfolded, Jacobs began showing a kind of confidence that few dared display in front of Golovkin. Instead of backpedaling into panic, he started switching stances, orthodox to southpaw and back, disrupting Golovkin's usually unstoppable rhythm. Each shift was a question, a trap, an invitation to miscalculate. Golovkin, usually the puppet master of distance, found himself reaching, probing, and adjusting more than usual. Still, danger lingered in every step Jacobs took. Golovkin's jab wasn't just a rangefinder, it was a weapon, snapping Jacobs' head with thudding precision. But Jacobs' footwork kept him alive. He'd slide left, roll under, pivot out, and fire a sharp counter that electrified the crowd. The exchanges weren't yet explosive, but they were deeply strategic. Intelligent violence layered with intention. Then came the moment that reminded everyone why Golovkin was feared. Round 4, Jacobs dipped into southpaw one more time, but this time Golovkin read the pattern. With a split-second shift of weight and a perfectly timed straight right, he detonated a punch directly onto Jacobs' jaw. The Miracle Man hit the canvas. Gasps shot through the arena. It was the kind of punch that had ended nights for many men. Yet Jacobs rose almost instantly, steady, eyes unclouded. Golovkin surged forward, smelling opportunity. He pressed with hooks, jabs, and suffocating pressure. But Jacobs refused to unravel. He clinched when needed, moved when space opened, countered when Golovkin overcommitted. It was here, in the aftermath of the knockdown, that the narrative began to transform. Instead of breaking, Jacobs grew sharper. Instead of fading, he recalibrated. The knockdown was real, but so was his refusal to be conquered. And from here, the fight would evolve into something Golovkin hadn't experienced in years. Resistance that fought back with intelligence. The middle rounds, 5, 6, 7, became the territory where Daniel Jacobs blossomed into his most brilliant form. He had survived Golovkin's storm, and now he began crafting his own. His jab, once tentative, became a spear. His stance switches, once exploratory, became weapons of deception. Golovkin pressed forward relentlessly, but Jacobs turned the ring into a maze. He circled with purpose, drawing Golovkin into angles that forced brief hesitations. And in those hesitations, Jacobs attacked. Crisp left hooks, straight rights, body shots, each one thrown with balance and intention. The crowd, many of whom had come expecting a Triple G knockout, now roared with growing respect for Jacob's defiance. Golovkin wasn't failing. He was simply facing a man whose skill set demanded attention. Still, Triple G's power never faded. When he cut distance, his body shots thudded like heavy lumber dropped on concrete. Jacobs would react, tightening his guard, weaving through danger, then firing back with combinations that snapped Golovkin's head. It became a chessboard of violence, one man solving equations, the other attempting to break them. The sixth round, in particular, revealed a new layer to Jacob's strategy. He planted his feet and traded in pockets, not out of recklessness, but to prove a point. He could stand with the monster and not crumble. Golovkin continued jabbing to the chest, trapping space, stepping inside. But for the first time in years, he wasn't the unquestioned ring general. Jacobs wasn't just surviving, he was competing. More than competing, he was winning moments. And in boxing, moments become rounds. The garden buzzed with disbelief. The knockdown no longer felt like a story ender. It felt like Act 1. Jacobs had risen in more ways than one, and the fight was entering even more dangerous waters for both men. As the fight pushed into rounds 8, 9, and 10, the intensity shifted from a strategic duel into a battle of will. Jacobs, now brimming with belief, began pressing forward in bursts, landing sharp combinations that brought the crowd to its feet. His left hook sneaked around Golovkin's guard. His straight right pierced the center lane with authority. He wasn't overwhelming Golovkin, but he was disrupting him, something almost no one in Triple G's career had managed. Golovkin responded with the stoic fire of a champion. He adjusted his guard, quickened his jab, and forced Jacobs into uncomfortable exchanges. Yet Jacobs absorbed, adapted, and fired back. The exchanges became more spirited, more desperate, more electric. Jacobs' corner demanded discipline. No brawling, no ego battles, just smart boxing. But Jacobs, human, determined, sensing opportunity, could not resist the heat of combat. He fought with a survivor's heart and a contender's precision. Golovkin, too, fought with rare urgency. His right hand cracked through Jacobs' defenses multiple times. His jab regained command in key stretches, snapping Jacobs' head back with a reminder of who he was. But Jacobs' resolve never wavered. He kept switching stances, creating confusion, forcing Golovkin to reset again and again. Those rounds were not just competitive. They were emblematic of two men fighting not just for belts, but for identity. Triple G refused to let his reign slip. Jacobs refused to let destiny overlook him. And as the 10th round closed, the tension in the arena became suffocating. Every punch felt like it might change the fight. Every second felt like it carried the weight of careers. The greatest battles are the ones where both fighters bleed belief. And this one was beginning to feel like something unforgettable. The championship rounds, 11 and 12, crackled with an intensity that can only come from two warriors with everything at stake. Jacobs entered the 11th round, knowing he had already done what few had. He had made the invincible look human. He boxed beautifully, stepping in with confident jabs, slipping Golovkin's counters, and firing his own with renewed purpose. Golovkin, aware of the closeness of the fight, pushed with controlled aggression. His jab, his most fundamental weapon, became his anchor, finding Jacobs' forehead repeatedly. Each time it landed, the sound echoed through the garden. But Jacobs responded with combinations, 5 and 6 punch flurries that proved his engine still had plenty of fuel. The 12th round arrived, with the stakes unmistakably clear. This was the round that could rewrite narratives. Jacobs came out assertive, moving forward behind the jab, firing crisp left hands. Golovkin answered with sharp rights, digging deep into reserves of poise and power. The exchanges were thrilling. Jacobs landing clean, Golovkin answering, both men refusing to blink. For 3 minutes, pride overcame fatigue. The arena roared in disbelief as Jacobs backed Golovkin up with a left hand. Golovkin responded with a right hand that snapped Jacobs' head. Neither backed down. Neither surrendered. The bell rang, cutting through a storm of leather and will. Jacobs dropped to his knees, not broken, but emotionally overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he'd given. Golovkin walked to his corner, knowing he had been tested like never before. As the scorecards were read, winner by unanimous decision, Gennady Golovkin, the crowd erupted, though with a note of reflection. Jacobs had not won the belts, but he had won something rare: global respect, career validation, and a place in the heart of every fight fan who witnessed that night.